Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Music and Beyond. I'm Ernie Crazy Eyes. Today I have a good Rogering, and today we are here with Skunk Manhattan and Tim Driscoll. How's it going, guys?
Doing well.
Hey, glad to be here.
It's been a long time coming. We've been working on this for like maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe more. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
we had talked maybe during COVID or something about. Yeah, I couldn't remember if we ever ended up doing one or not, but I guess not. Right, but it has been a while.
Yeah, no, I did Broken to Brave.
Oh yeah,
And then I did another band, but I forgot what band it was.
yeah. Broken and Brave are good guys. I know Bobby, the leader there. He's a swell chap.
Oh yeah, Bobby's amazing, dude. Like, I remember I went to go interview them one time, and then a year later I was already part of their road crew, and I was just like, oh wow, this is crazy.
So have they played down there in your neck of the woods?
Nah, not really. No, not that I know of or can remember. But I've been trying to bring them down here, but you know, venues and I don't know how all that stuff works. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but yeah, guys, I'm happy that you guys are here. And one thing that I like to know about the band is the formation, and so you guys are a big part of the Austin music scene, and I know that the music scene out there is freaking strong because I've been in Austin and I see how much love you guys have for each other. Um, can you take us back to the very beginning on how the band came together, and what was your initial influence and goals when you guys first started?
Yeah, I had just finished fighting in the Civil War and decided now. Yeah, we've been around for a while, man. Good Rogering started. I think the formation, the origins of it all started around 2007, and I had been in Austin for a few years and had a kind of a cover band where we did a few originals. It was my brother and I, and then I had joined this band Quarter Shackle, and which that band was around for a while. Disbanded, I think, in 2009, 10 album came out, and but the band was dead. So that album, Quarter Shackle Up from the Ashes, was actually recently re-released, remastered. So that was cool to see. But one of the guys became friends with in that band, Blaine Mott, bass player, hit it off with me and my brother, and we started. My brother and I had some songs we've been writing. Blaine came in the fold and started, writing with us, and we started, jamming. And then got this drummer, Mike Molina, all went in the studio in 2008. And what started as sort of a demo became our actual first album that came out January 2010. And so the early band shows were probably late 2008. We played a lot in 2009, 2010. Went through a couple of roster changes, ended up as a trio, and then we're on hiatus for a few years around like 2012. We had 2 albums at that point, and then so not a lot happened for about 3 years, and then resurged with a whole new group of guys. Sammy Alvarado, our bass player, who's the longest running member of Good Rogering now, aside myself, because my brother ended up moving to San Francisco back in 2015. And then we've had a few different drummers, including Ram Gov, which pretty much anybody in Austin knows. Jeff Gonzalez is our guy lately, who's toured with us a couple of times now, and is going to be recording some new music with us here real soon. But yeah, Tim, I want to say Tim started kind of jumping on stage with us, either, whether it was by, choice or not. I do remember, I don't know if it was the first time. Was it the first time I got Tim on stage? I went out into the crowd because I had seen him play with Dead or Politics, and we had, I was always friends with Dead or Politics. I had even set in and played, a show or two with them once upon a time, like just as a few songs when they were looking at 2 guitar players. Tim came along, and I think the first time, well, maybe that must have been after I toured with Dead or Politics in 2017.
Yeah.
And then Tim and I became friends, and then there was a night when we were playing the Dirty Dog, which was like a staple of the rock metal scene here in Austin for many years. And I just went out of the crowd and said, Tim, go up there and play guitar solo.
Like you're in the band now.
This was probably like 2018 or something. But yeah, the problem the problem there is I wasn't exactly in shall we say game shape because like many a night at the Dirty Dog, you know, there was a lot of beers going around, and many of them to me. So yeah, he invited me up on stage, and it was like, you know, it was for the song Under the Gun, which is, I mean, still one of my favorite AGR songs to play. Just, you know, this, you know, real mean, chugging, drop D, riffy song. And, you know, with plenty of room for lots of guitar solos. Problem is you got to make them good. Mine that night was not very good because I just kind of didn't really know what end was up, and like the Strat came loose on the guitar, and it was pretty. And Skunk was just having a good time. Like he made no attempt to rescue me. He saw me drowning, and like, you know, didn't even throw me a lifeline. He's like, I'm gonna let this guy sink.
I was probably drunk too, just running around the crowd. But we had we would just do a lot of quirky, fun things, and I mean that was, you know, one of the many times. It's a little more structured and organized these days, but you know, I've always loved having guest musicians, both on albums, you know, in the studio and on stage, and I'm notorious for this. Some people will tell you, you know, there are times where we'll just, in the moment, I'll be like, do you know this song? Not really. Okay, well, here are the chords, go. And so it was, you know, it was trial by fire. Not that Tim needed any kind of trial, but yeah, I didn't grab him in his greatest moment, but it was still pretty awesome. I think people really dug it. It was just a fun off the cuff thing, and but yeah, I mean, so then for a little, you know, a quick stint there, we actually had a free guitarist in the band. I mean, myself, fronting the band, you know, plays guitar most of the time, and then Rick Lambert was in the band for a few years, so he was still in the band at that point. And then we did a few shows where it was also Tim, so we had three guitarists, and it was great because we could really do some, you know, intricate harmonies and stuff like that. I think we did. We opened for Uli John Roth in San Antonio, and I don't know what other shows you played with us at that time, but I do remember that was one of the three.
And there was a Skunk Fest in there.
Yeah, there was a Skunk Fest.
Oh, Skunk Fest! I tried to go to that too.
Yeah. Well, I'm reviving it, man. This is the first media I'm saying this on. That's Skunk Fest. I've been kind of alluding to it. It's very exclusive. Yeah. No, Skunk Fest. I did went real big in 2022, and it was tough because the weather. It was in November because that was the only option I had with the touring I was doing that year, and it was pretty tough to coordinate and market and do all those things while I was on the road. I got back literally, I think, a week before the festival, and then the weather was awful. So, you know, everybody showed up and did their job, and it was great. And the people that were there endured the cold, and we had a great time. And it was, I think, something really special. But I'm not rolling the dice on an outdoor venue again this year. So we're back at Come and Take It Live, November 16th, a full stacked all day festival, Skunk Fest. We'll be back here in Austin, Texas.
November 16th. I'm gonna have to.
Sure.
What's up?
Learjet, come on down here, man.
Right?
Yeah, but dude, I feel you with the outdoor venues because I try to do it every year, but in 2019 I threw my first birthday bash, and I had a lot of musicians from my area perform, and then we started seeing lightning right while the last band was performing, or before they were actually, you know, while they were setting up. They were setting up, and then we heard like thunder and lightning, and we're just like, "Fuck!"
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "All right, guys, come on, like let's do this. Like we need to close out the show." And so they start playing. They finish their set, but as soon as the set starts finishing up and stuff, it starts like sprinkling, and I think the band that was performing, they cut this song short, and everybody started disconnecting everything, and me and my best friend, who, you know, is no longer with us, we started like helping them too, and we started taking everything, you know, outside of the bar and to the car because the rain freaking rained it out.
Yeah, instead of a fire drill, it was a water drill. Like, all right, everybody, you know, everybody get off stage so they don't get electrocuted. Yeah, That's that actually happened. Skunk, I don't know if you remember this or not, but one of the times we were talking before we came on about the Kraken in Brownsville, and one of the RuneScarred shows that we played was originally going to be outdoors.
Oh, okay.
And it was sometime in February, but it was like that day or like a couple days leading up to it, there was like a really bad cold snap in the area. So it's like day of the show, we ended up having to move the show to the Kraken. I honestly forget where the outdoor venue was that it was going to be, but that's the thing, like those fringe months in Texas, right?
Yes.
Your Februaries, your Novembers, like if you get lucky, you could have it's like 70 degrees and it's like that's super nice.
Like the very next week of Skunk Fest is gorgeous.
Exactly. And then you get the other one
freezing
where it's like 40 and gross. So
yeah, it is really. I mean, it's good. Texas is very bipolar with its spring and fall weather for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you said that the like electrocuted and stuff, that reminds me of the movie Almost Famous. Thank you, Almost Famous, for the inspiration. I think the singer got electrocuted, right?
I think so. I do remember that scene. Was it Brandon Lee, right? Wasn't he the singer, the actor, or no?
I'm
It's
not.
a long time since I've seen that movie, but I do remember that one of the guys getting electrocuted. Funny thing, Tim and I saw this whole seminar at the NAMM show this year. Accidentally, we thought it was going to be about something else, and it was about faulty power.
Yeah, like stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and deaths that have occurred over the years from electrocutions, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it, it's one of those, and I guess it's one of those things you can kind of take for granted that, like, you show up at a venue or whatever, you just assume everything's in good working order and everything's fine, but it's like, I mean, when you're dealing with the mice of rock and roll and metal, it's like there's, it's not just an AC/DC song, like high voltage, like it's the real thing, like you got to be. You totally knew this is where the conversation was going to be going. We were going to be giving safety lectures on electricity and proper grounding and all that kind of stuff. It's quite riveting.
And now we're going to talk about how drunk you need to be before you go on stage.
Right. Yes.
And your music blends a lot of elements with hard rock and metal. How has your sound evolved over the years? Are there any specific moments or experiences that have significantly influenced your direction of your music, the direction of your music?
I don't think there's been any like big eureka moments where I was like, we're gonna be this now, or I've never been obviously a trend chaser or anything like that. I mean, everybody has to adapt to sort of the modern recording techniques and a certain standard, I think, of maybe you don't, but I think there's certain sonic, standards with the time you kind of want to at least be on the fringe on, but it's also nice to, sometimes, things that are somewhat timeless from both a songwriting and a sonic standpoint. So, I mean, one thing about our albums is they're all a little bit different, but I'm proud of them all in terms of I think they're all sonically good. They're different but good. And the songs, I think the first one, it kind of, if you look at the way our albums have gone over the years, like it makes sense. Our first one was really rough around the edges because we really went into the studio. We went into the studio for 8 hours. Our drummer booked it, and like I said, it was going to be a demo. And I just kind of like put my producer hat on and just dove in and in the deep end and it was our album. But the cool thing about it is it's live. It's all live minus, some vocal overdubs and guitar, stuff I did after the fact. But the bare bones tracks are all live. There's almost literally no editing. I think there's like one or two spots we did a little edit. And so, I mean, it is absolutely 100% organic rock and roll. No click track. And there's something really, Rob Hinton at Mesa Recording Studios mixed that after we had recorded it, and for what it was, just the kind of tones and everything, like he really made it sound great. And there's a quality about that album that I really love. And it's a little scatterbrained, but it's kind of a mixture, I think, of like there's a little bit of southern rock elements, but some pretty progressive, sneaky progressive stuff on there too. So I think garage prog, yeah, absolutely. And I think right out the gate we kind of found our sound in a way that we kind of, there was going to be progressive elements, but we're still, a hard rock, rock and roll band. Not, we weren't like a math rock band or anything like that.
Yeah, well, to me, as an outside listener, right, it's like thinking about that album is like, it's, a lot of times on the inner sleeve of a record, like they'll have, there'll be the picture of the band, and it's always like, ooh, a candid photo of the band in the studio together, and everybody's got their headphones around, but they're all in the circle looking at each other. And a lot of times, usually it's like that picture is almost kind of done as like a bit of a pose or look at how together we are. Mm-hmm. But it's like, when I think of that kind of band photo, that's what that album is. It's the band in the studio in the round, so to speak, like listening to each other, feeding off of each other. It's not like, one person does one thing and then the next person has to stack their part on top of someone else's.
Yep.
And, it's not. It's a circular kind of an album. It's not a vertical album.
Yeah.
It's not a skyscraper.
Very old school in the way we did it, and I loved that album, the way that it started like that. And I still would say, a couple of my favorite AGR songs are on that album. And so from there, nothing's been done like that since that I can think of until very recently. We recorded a couple of songs out in LA, and those aren't finished, but the basic tracks were recorded the same way. So it's just a matter of how we're going to release it and what we're going to put it with. But we actually did record as a band live a couple of tunes back in, I think, April, with some friends there. Everything after Long Overdue, our first release in 2010, has been, like Tim said, more of the vertical stacking. You have your scratch tracks and the drummer tracks, and, you get that in line, and then you do the bass and guitars, and you just keep building it, right? And that's kind of how we have gone moving forward. We had a different, little bit different roster in when we started recording our second album, Lifeblood, probably 2011, 2012. That came out in 2013, and we're actually celebrating. I wanted to do a 10-year anniversary of it last year, but it just things just did not pan out for that to happen, and which actually worked out great, because I think what we have now collectively, the way the band, everything is rolling, I think it's the right time. We're just going to call it, Lifeblood Goes to 11, and that is going to be wrapped. That's going to be our set at Skunk Fest. We're going to do a Lifeblood set. We're going to celebrate our anniversary of that album, and that was also at that one was. Well, a lot of these were tracked, like Long Overdue was tracked at Fifth Street Studios, and then mixed by Rob at his place. And then the next one was tracked partially, the drums, bass, basic guitars were tracked at a studio called 1916 in Kyle, Texas. And we took those tracks and did some reamping, and then Rob mixed that too. So there was a little bit of piecemealing going on, and I was figuring things out back then. That's when I started learning the DAWs and really getting into, more efficient with pre-production and editing and all that. So I did a lot of kind of the back end work on that, or front end work, I guess.
Yeah.
But that one I think was, I don't even know how to describe Lifeblood. I think it's a heavier album, but it's a little scatterbrained. Like we brought in a little bit of our like quirky Zappa Mr. Bungle elements, like just touches of that in that album. Also, we had kind of, a little bit of the Pink Floyd nod. Of course, we still had I think there's a lot of like obvious sort of, if I had to say, what bands do you sound most like, I'd probably say like, we got a healthy dose of the old Metallica, Megadeth, Alice in Chains. A lot of people have said, they hear Mastodon influence. Clutch, yeah. And especially on the first record, I think there was some Clutch, but yeah, so I think it's that, and then we explored new territory. There's 3 instrumental tracks on that album, which is kind of weird, kind of a progressive one, a rocker, a chill, really melodic one, and then a classical piano piece I wrote. So that one, I think a tagline I used for a while was something like, a good Rogering everything from Beethoven to Mr. Bungle or some shit like that, and kind of lured a few people in, but.
Yeah, to me, I think of that album, and what's kind of exciting about that, especially after I say this and contrast it to what we're doing this year, but like the Lifeblood album is pretty much, there's the piano piece and stuff like that, but by and large, it's the most purely guitar-oriented record.
Yeah,
I felt that.
Of the catalog. So it's like, you know, that's really, it's sort of like a lot of good Roger Eng's music. It's sort of, it answers two questions. First, well, it's like, okay, if there's holes in the music, do you leave the holes or do you fill the holes? And if so, what do you fill the holes with? Well,
I love the metaphor. This is a perfect metaphor for a band called.
Well, you know, I'll leave that.
Good Roger, filling holes.
Yeah, well, that part I'll leave to the listener's imagination. But I mean, on Lifeblood, it was the answer. The answer was yes and guitars, right?
Right.
And then if you contrast that with what we're what we're recording this year, the stuff that Skunk mentioned, the stuff we did out in LA. We've got some time set aside here in a couple of weeks here in town. We're going to be laying down the basic tracks for a couple of new songs, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, there's still plenty of interesting stuff guitar-wise that's happening on here, but we're going to have keys and horns and like get really, you know, just layer it with a bunch of backing vocals and like, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? It's like, it's sort of like, okay, well, you know, if Lifeblood was the Appetite for Destruction, this is more, these are the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
That's a great analogy.
And so it's, you know, and that part's really exciting too. I mean, even we just got through our last couple of shows, we had, you know, Skunk talks about guest musicians just bringing people in. We have this guy playing with us now, Hampton Rattan. He's an amazing multi-instrumentalist. He can play keyboards, he can play saxophone, he can play flute, he can put like, you put something in his hands, he's going to get a sound out of it, right?
Good sound.
And, good sound, right, most of the time. So he was someone that Skunk met through, you know, another band. He was another group he was touring with, Invincible Czars, which I don't want to go on too of a tangent, but the Invincible Czars are amazing. Check them out, Skunk. If you want to talk more about that, that's fine. But but Hampton gives a whole new dimension. It's like, okay, our last couple of shows, we opened and closed with Pink Floyd songs. Right, and it sounded amazing, felt great, right? And it's like,
having the organ, the saxophone.
That's not something we could have done 5-7 years ago, you know. So that's what really helps keep things fresh, I think.
Yeah, and I think, and Tim and I have always really been on the same page. I mean, if you listen to the Quarter Shackle album, which came out in 2012 originally, and then Lifeblood, which came out in 2013, those are both very heavy guitar albums. Like, not just in terms of like all the riffs and everything, but just like lots of guitar solos, you know, and I think that's really, I really showcased myself as a guitarist. And then honestly, after that record, like my brother and I made a conscious decision that we wanted to focus more on melody and more on just songwriting, you know. It's like, all right, but there was a difference too, like the way the songs were constructed. It was me and my brother just writing, you know, in Pro Tools, and not that we didn't write some of the stuff with our older bandmates, you know, but I think the nature of the music was already just different, because it's different when you're sort of writing as a group and it's like, oh, here's a riff and oh, I got an idea, and things just sort of move in that organic way, which can be amazing, or it can kind of be catastrophic. It can go either way, and you really have to know, is this, you know, are we just out of control right now that we want to walk away, or are we really on to something? Let's roll with it. So there were songs on Lifeblood, some of them that were just like, boom, they just organically came together in the rehearsal room, and I, you know, got a phone recording and then went and, you know, wrote it and produced it. And it was just like, okay, awesome. There was other stuff that was just falling flat because there were too many ideas, too many cooks in the kitchen. And then we took them back to the drawing board and really crafted songs. And I think on the heels of that record, we made a really conscious effort. We wrote probably, I don't know, 15, 20 songs in the next, you know, over the next year or so. And it took them, you know, 4 of those songs ended up on the This Is Death Metal EP that came out in 2017. And then another 8 were on our last album, Systematic Paralysis, which came out a couple of years ago. By far has been our most commercially viable and successful album, you know, the most sales, the most streams. You know, we pressed vinyl for that, the first album we did that for. And that one was where we had done all the pre-production. My brother and I had written the songs, and then I took that one to Kafir Gov, Ram, our drummer, who recorded on that album, who was drumming with us at the time. And so he laid down the drum tracks, and Kafir was just we worked really well together, co-producing that, and very, very happy with that product. And we've done 6 videos for that album, so we really leveraged that one. We've been riding that out for a few years, but like Tim said, I mean, I think it's a constant evolution, which is a good thing, and I think we're still in that. It's all of it. It's some of that territory of just like, oh, this is a good rock song. It's catchy. It's hooky. There's nothing to prove. Instrument-wise, it's about, production and placement. Other stuff's like, yeah, now let's get progressive again. We're really going to riff out and be ambitious. And then some of the stuff is completely different. It's funk. It's, we released a single called Mr. Peanut, which was a funk song, which had,
that's a good one.
Right, trumpet and all that, and saxophone. So we're, I always called us like eclectic heavy rock. Yeah, we're a hard rock metal band, but we don't go all over the place. And the new stuff coming out, over the next, later this year and next year is going to be kind of all over the place. Hopefully in a good way, But yeah, so there's definitely been like, the way things have evolved, but I think it's all just been kind of organic. There's never been like, oh, this is a popular thing now, so we have to do this or sound like this. I mean, it's just the music that resonates with you. You write a bunch of stuff, and some of it makes the cut, some of it never does. Some of it might take 10 years to release. But always, definitely looking forward to getting some new stuff out for sure.
Hey, would you say that the new stuff has been long overdue?
I would. Yeah, I mean, we're maybe not as bad as Tool, but a good Rogering is certainly can be a bit snailish about putting out new material. So yeah.
And honestly, like when I went back to listening to y'all's music and stuff, I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm the biggest Metallica hater ever, but I do respect them as a band. I just feel like they're overplayed.
Yeah, sure.
But when I started listening to Long Overdue, I was just like, wait, did I put Metallica on or did I put? And I was just like, oh, okay. I was like, I like this better, like and that's what I love. Like, that's what I love about you guys. Like, you made a band that I don't like sound really fucking good.
Interesting. Yeah, I think. I used to even get a lot of kind of even looked like James Hetfield. I think at one point. Yeah, and I definitely have that aspect of my singing, that kind of that raspy yo ho. I don't do all that stuff, but I can definitely see that line. There's I make no secret about what our influences are, and then some of the stuff is like, yeah, I mean, this is like homage to Alice in Chains. It's pretty clear like on some stuff, but the reception's been good. And what I do like is we don't get, what's actually really cool is when people are like, oh man, your guitar playing reminds me of so and so, or this song reminds me of so. I might write something and in my head I was thinking Faith No More vibe, and then someone's like, oh yeah, that reminds me of White Zombie, which I'm like, oh really? I never would have thought that. So it's cool the way different people, I think it's good for a band if you're getting kind of a lot of like different people saying, oh, it reminds me of this or makes me think of this or that, and rather than like if everybody was just like, oh, you guys sound exactly like, this one band, I'd be like, oh, well, maybe we should try to diversify. But I don't, especially the new stuff, I don't think some of the newer things we're doing, I don't think people are going to go like, this sounds like Metallica.
Yeah, no. I mean, that wasn't like a diss to you guys or anything.
No. Like, they're like one of the biggest metal band of all time. So
I could say I hate them, and
yeah,
I could hate them because it's like they're making millions and I'm just here.
I think there's like one thing I like about Metallica. I mean, I tend to like, if I look at the overall catalog, personally, I like a band like Megadeth better because I think Dave Mustaine is very consistent. I think he's a great songsmith, a writer, and a vocalist, personal opinion. And they're known for their thrash and speed metal and Rust in Peace and Countdown Extinction, those classic albums, but all their pop, I shouldn't say pop, but somewhat pop, stuff they did in the 90s, and I love it. I think it's all really good. Even the albums that would get dogged like Risk, I think Risk is a decent album. Maybe it's not their best, but I think it's pretty good. Whereas Metallica, I'll give them credit for being really ambitious and really going out of a limb, and just their great song catalog, their work ethic, and their management, what all their ideas and things they've leveraged over the years has gotten them to where they are. But I mean, they've recorded some of the worst music ever, and I mean, just horrific stuff. Like
it's sad but true.
Yeah,
The,
exactly. But they've also got some of the greatest metal albums, undeniable, some of the greatest metal albums of all time. So Metallica is kind of interesting, and I think, just the spectrum of their material. So, and I that's cool, because from an artist standpoint, I understand you're in different headspaces. You want to try different things. You might get sick of playing the same thing all the time. Some bands like AC/DC, which doesn't, they kind of do the same thing every time, but we don't care because it's cool and it works.
Yeah, I mean, the way the way you kind of think of it is like, okay, well, some of these bands, Metallica being the example we're using, but it's like there's the way I often follow bands is I often will like a band more if I don't like everything they've done. You know what I mean? Because it means,
yeah.
it means they're trying new things, and they're hopefully doing things for themselves.
Right.
And if people like it, great. If they don't,
They're
don't.
being
Like
an artist.
Like you don't have to listen to it. These days more than any other days, if you don't like something, there's no excuse to not find something that you do like, because there's so much out there just at your fingertips. Now you take a band like AC/DC, who I like them for different reasons. I mean, AC/DC is Coca-Cola. They perfected the formula, and they do that better than anyone else. And it's like it's a good formula, right?
Yeah.
There's no one real right way to do things, because it's like, there's plenty of bands that, the examples everybody cites, AC/DC, Slayer, whoever, where it's like, okay, they found their thing, and they found their lane, and they pretty much stuck there, and that was a good thing. But there's just as many other bands we can't even name. You know why we can't name them? Because they never got anywhere, but they only did one thing because that's the only thing that they could do.
Right.
And they were boring, and maybe they had one cool album at the start of their career, and then it became clear.
Or one hit.
And it became clear that they had.
I think that probably happens a lot with
those
bands. Maybe younger bands back in the heyday of the record labels and rock music and stuff. I think maybe you might get bands that had the appeal. Maybe they had a following. They had a couple of, they had potential. Probably got a development deal, like maybe with a label and a producer. This would just be a guess, with some of these type bands. Like, got in the studio, had some, co-writing help, this and that, a good producer, popped out a hit or two, but then they were like, okay, what now? And they couldn't really follow it up, right? So I think that's the mark of the true artist. And whether you like them or not, some of the bands we're citing, I mean, they're more, one we mentioned are Guns N' Roses and Metallica. Faith No More. That first concert I ever saw was those three bands, and to this day, they're three of my favorite bands ever, three of my biggest influences ever. I love all three of those bands. I like the entire catalog pretty much of Faith No More. I like almost the entire catalog of Guns N' Roses. Metallica has a few, in my opinion, pretty severe duds. But the other stuff that's not, by far compensates for it. So, and I just give those bands credit for going for it and trying different things. And I as like I said, from the artistic side of me, which I'm wired as an artist, not a businessman, and not a marketing guy or anything. And I look at, I prefer that to anything ever that's contrived. That's like, here's a formula that works, and it's at this BPM, and then we're going to have this amount of hip hop and this amount of this and this amount of that, because that's what our analytics are showing that's hot and trending right now. I fucking hate that. I don't ever want to operate like that. And that doesn't mean you sell out. If someone writes a great album of catchy tunes, if I went and did a bunch of pop music, that doesn't mean I'm selling out. It just means like, I'm into this, and this is what I like. And
right. Well,
as a musician, after a long time, you're bound to learn how to write some good fucking songs.
I think the thing that, mistake that some people can make, right, is that, yes, it's true that all music, or music that we hear, right, consumable music, if you will, it's always it's always going to be, to some degree, it's always going to be a mix of art and commerce. But the thing is, the way you think about it is that it's not always like a total equal split. It's not always, you could have 50% of one, 50 of the other, or 75% of one, 25% of the other. There's a lot of overlap, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, talking about like maybe if you have, if if at one point in time the music you happen to write also happened to be something that caught on, that people dug, then what's like, okay, which part of that is it? But it's both. It's art and commerce at the same time,
yeah.
right? And that's okay. You'd like to think that for the most part, people, are you being honest, right? Because being honest as an artist means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I mean, and some of that, it's sort of like, what is expected, right? Like, I don't know, like, without even knowing how good it sounds or whatever, it's like, what if Adele tried putting out a death metal song next week? People might be, would that go anywhere? Probably not, because it would just seem, it would obviously seem like a pose, right? And this is,
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't have any idea if that was something she'd be interested in. But
anyone's going to have a backlash when they try something different.
Right,
like
exactly.
Beyonce country thing,
Right, yeah. So,
and I think Lil Wayne tried to do a rock album, or he did a rock album. I don't know if it came out pretty good or not. I haven't heard it.
Who's this? Sorry.
Lil Wayne, he's a rapper.
Oh, Lil Wayne, yeah. Well, yeah, and my knowledge exists of memes of him with holding a guitar, right? I don't.
He's certainly not known for his guitar playing.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's
freestyle rap. I think he's pretty high on the list. But not a guitar player. I would hope that he's not the one playing guitar though.
Oh no. And
it's probably better than Vanilla Ice's band. But
I mean, Ice-T did it with Body Count.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I remember that.
Yeah.
And now he's on CSI or whatever.
Well, I mean, I think, and those kind of they do share common roots in the sense that it's heavy music, right? Not all, heavy music isn't just metal.
Well, visceral, there's a visceral quality.
Exactly. I mean,
it's not written for the aristocrats of the world. It's
right.
It kind of comes from the slums and the ghettos, for lack of a better word. But a lot of that kind of music, whether it be heavy metal or punk rock or rap, is a lot of the origins are kind of from the streets, so to speak. Yeah. And I think
the underclass,
right? Yeah, the underclass. So I mean that's gonna resonate with people, and it seemed like a natural fuse to do those things. But like with anything, I think when things like that happen, somebody does it with the right idea in mind, and maybe it's like really cool and hip, and then someone else goes, oh, hey, let's capitalize on this. And then you kind of get a trend of something that just gets watered down in vanilla, and you're like, this is gross,
Basically, fifth generation photocopies of something.
Right.
Yeah, I see. I can see that. And can you walk us through your creative process when writing and producing new music? How do you guys balance the difference and influences and ideas within the band to create a cohesive sound?
There's really not like a formula there, because it's always been different. Like I said, originally things were either just kind of written by my brother and I, or as a full band. We did get a few songs that, someone would bring in a verse riff, someone had a chorus riff, and maybe, some, lyrics or whatever. I mean, typically, like, my brother and I would write the lyrics, and then, so some of the earlier stuff was written very collectively, and even shells of songs were later developed, based on some of the ideas that had happened in a rehearsal space or whatever. That is not, has become more the exception, but that's, I'm kind of at a place now where we're kind of moving back to that a little bit with the new roster, where we've kind of got a little more, it's a little more open to, like, okay, like, for instance, Jeff, the drummer, Jeff Gonzalez, is, right now for these two new demos that Tim and I scratched, we sent them to him, and he's coming up with drum stuff, right? And then we'll all meet and say, okay, cool, like, we dig this direction, this is perfect. I don't really hear this, we'll see, right? And we'll talk about it, we'll refine it, and then, go in the studio and track it. But same thing happened with Kafir and Ram, I mean, with that, though, a lot of the drums were actually written by my brother and I, too, where they weren't necessarily like fancy, drummer drum parts, but we knew what we wanted. We knew how the bass and the the drums were supposed to groove together, and okay, we want the hi-hat here, the ride here, this kind of thing here. And then you let a real drummer come in and put in the fills and bring it to life. And there was stuff I listened to for years that were demos that I was like, this sounds pretty good. Should I just put it out? And thank God I didn't, because once I got in a studio and got real musicians on it, and that was the thing. Like some of these songs on the last album, we had some guest musicians still from the Invincible Czars, played violin. Our friend Suki, who we just tracked with in LA, did some vocals on a song we just put out a lyric video for a little while back called All There Ever Is, which is more kind of a ethereal Pink Floyd-ish, album closer that's not, hard rock at all. And then we had, everybody was on this song, Hands of the Conqueror. Keyboard player that was playing with us for a while, John Takanikos, did some B3 and Rhodes on it. Tim did some leads on it. So that was a song that was done, and I was just like, now let's get everybody involved. And then those little sprinkles that ninth inning fairy dust is just like really, really takes those songs to the next level. And I think, and Tim and I went and had a meeting with Kafir, with these two new songs, and with just phone demo recordings, hey, here's what we got, here's what they, cool, we talked about it. We came back, we scratched those, and then we sent it to him, we sent it to the drummer, and then we'll meet and kind of, so it's different. There's been times where I kind of did it all beforehand and then went in the studio and kind of tracked everything, minus drums. I usually have someone else play drums, and then there's times where I will go in with a phone recording with a producer and or musicians and sort of craft the song, in a rehearsal space or studio. So we're definitely not a one-size-fits-all, operation. But I think that's cool because it lends itself to different, we get different flavors of music out of that. So every album and situation has been a little different.
Yeah, and I guess the key is that, the best idea can come from anybody.
Yeah.
And really and each song can be different in the sense that it's like, okay, well, generally, yeah, it's going to start with one person. Like one thing that is something we generally don't do is, frankly, because we don't have the time, but it's like, we won't like go into like a band rehearsal and be like,
let's write.
All right, guys, let's just write something. Let's all just come up. And everyone, with no prep whatsoever, because,
someone usually comes in with an embryo,
right?
At
exactly.
least, or a pretty good.
That other approach, unless you're really talented, you're probably not going to come up with your best work that way, because It's like me, the parts that I come up with, it's like I need to have it with myself first for a little bit and work out what I think the kinks are, and then I feel comfortable presenting it to everyone else as a finished or at least a semi-finished product. And it's like, all right, here's the 80%. Can you come up with the 20% to complete the equation?
Yeah, Tim and I are real similar. Like what I am in A Good Rogering, he is in RuneScarred, and I think he was in Dead Earth Politics there as well, where it's someone that's writing like you said, maybe the 80%. Hey, here's a bunch of riffs already put together. Here's an arrangement. Here's this whole big idea. What do you guys think? Okay, cool. Yeah, I like this. Maybe this is too long. Let's trim that, shade that. What if we put this here? What if we change this? And then you start kind of crafting it and, sculpting it as a band. So I think that's for both of us, that's a great way to work. And Tim always did this with RuneScarred. Thank God, or I'd have never been able to play any of the music, transcribing it all. So it's all written out. I've done that with a pretty good percentage of Good Rogering's music and something in the future. And that's another thing I love about Jeff, and I love with drummers that I play with that are trained musicians, because they can write the music and read the music. And this band, the Invincible Czars, who composes original scores, an hour 15, an hour and a half of constant music to old silent films and tours on that. You cannot do that gig if you don't read music. And I'm not a huge snob saying that everyone in the world has to read music. If you're a singer-songwriter, who cares? You can write great songs without ever knowing theory or reading music. But when you're in a band and you work like we do, I think it is an extremely valuable tool. And like Tim says, we're not just kids kicking around in our parents' garage. Like everyone's busy with jobs and lives in different places. Everything is like, it's, you really have to, time matters, and there's not time to fart around tossing riffs around in the rehearsals room, and there's not time to. I mean, it's so helpful when musicians can go, okay, cool. Like, okay, what is it? Yeah, send me a track and send me the music and I'll learn it. Okay, great, done. You know what I mean? Like, it's just efficiency,
Yeah. So that's the two big takeaways. Rock and roll lessons, right? Is learn to read music and don't electrocute yourself on stage. That's what the cool are doing these days.
See, and I love this because you literally, just brought it back to the beginning of the interview. And at the end of the interview, we're probably going to talk about everything that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. So, this is going to be a long-ass podcast. I hope you guys are ready.
Well, I was talking to my partner about launching ours again, man. We started one and we're cranking them out like 2 a week during COVID, and then started getting real busy touring with the Invincible Czars when everything opened up again in 2022, 2023, and Skunk Fest, and everybody getting busy again. And so I'm excited to bring that back, but we're making a conscious effort to not ramble on for 3 hours at a time. I do know that it's probably nice to keep them. I guess we're pushing an hour. That's not too bad, but yeah, this has been good, man. These are good questions. I enjoy talking about this, and it's not something I ever really think about, but talking about the process and everything, it's.
Yeah, no, I love this because, right here, we're literally starting to get to know you guys, and, for the people listening, they could totally understand you, and, they can appreciate the music a little bit more.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah.
And how do you guys approach the live performances, and what do you hope the crowd takes away from from the show when they see you guys live?
So I think we do. It's an interesting way. It's like we want to have an element of controlled chaos live, right? And the chaos, I don't mean that in a like a Dillinger escape plan where everybody has to sort of fear for their safety because it's just like bodies flying around all over the place. But this is sort of a cliche at this point, right? But it's like, oh, it's so hard to get attention these days, and blah blah blah. Yeah, we all know that. It's kind of always been difficult to do that, but it's like we want people to be equally impressed by the musicianship on stage and the show itself. It's like, obviously we're not playing venues and we don't have the budget for pyro and video screens and all of that stuff, but you can still you can still put on a show that's worth talking about. I mean, the show our last gig from a week and a half ago, none of the rest of the band knew what Skunk was going to do. Skunk knew what Skunk was going to do.
Oh, and shit.
We start, we start up the opening song. He's off stage, and all of a sudden he comes up on stage wearing a dress from Ross and wearing a friggin' pig mask, right?
Oh man.
And what happens, right? Is as soon as he steps on stage, we look in the crowd and everybody's got their phones up. It's like, okay, that accomplished the goal, right? But you know what we also did? We played the fuck out of a Pink Floyd song and played a great set. We were really in tune with each other and had a lot of cool little moments interacting not only with ourselves but the audience. I mean, you got to have both, because if you're all, it's got to be equal parts sizzle and steak, right? Because otherwise, that's what's that's what's going to stick with people. I think it's like doing both of those things.
Agreed. Yeah, I think when it comes to the music, I mean, in a perfect world, I would just, we would just be rehearsing and just be so tight, and one advantage of when we toured, a couple of years ago, we did a 3-week run out west, and we were, by the time we ended up playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, which was kind of our benchmark gig, we were on fire. It was great. And then we came back and it was kind of a bummer to not play as that unit because we were so in sync from just doing it every night for 3 weeks. But, you know, when we have a show, I do like to incorporate new material, new covers, get a lot of different ideas. I mean, not just me, but, you know, everyone in the band has great ideas. It's great. And so we've done a lot of different things. I'm not the kind of guy, you know, I know the philosophy of we'll just go play the same set everywhere because, you know, it'll be new to that audience. I like to mix it up. You know, I like to do things that are maybe specific to the time or an event or the town or whatever, you know, I don't know, like whatever comes up. And so, yeah, with this new member, Hampton, you know, playing organs and saxophone, it was just like, yeah, let's do some Pink Floyd, right? We can do this now. I couldn't do that in the days when we were a trio. You know, back then, you know, we'd play, you know, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, we've covered so many songs and so many genres over the year. I mean, I would venture to say a Good Rogering's probably covered 50 plus songs, but all over the map. But I think that's fun. Back to Tim's point, I think like, so yes, I want the music, I want it to sound good and be tight. Like we're never going to be, you know, we're not Dream Theater. We're more of like, we're rock and roll. We're Guns N' Roses, right? But we still want to be tight as a band and know the material and perform it well. But I think what makes a Good Rogering shows particularly special is the entertainment value and the unknown, right? Oh, I used to do a thing where I was a preacher and my brother was 6'5", wearing combat boots and an apron and a chef's hat and doing bass solos with a rolling pin, you know, and then they did a Typo Negative medley, and they just did a Willie Nelson song with a horn section. I mean, you never, you know, they just did a rap song, you know, and there's certain staples of shows I've had for years that even predate a Good Rogering that we still incorporate, you know, like throwing out a Digital Underground rap in the middle of a set, you know, and so I think those moments, and especially, and I love just engaging the crowd. Like the more engagement we get, it's reciprocal. The more get engaged, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah.
Cyclical, whatever. Yeah, like the more engagement, you know, it's just we all feed off the crowd. The crowd feeds off of us. So I love that energy and creating that energy, you know. So a tight show and tight set, you know, thought out. It's certainly not. I do things in the moment, off the cuff. But most of the set lists that you can ask the band who gave me a little shit for this in the last show are, you know, they're pretty methodical. You know, they're pretty well thought out, and we all believe like we want to perform that way. We want to know what is our. We don't want to be on stage going, okay, what's the next song, guys? You know, it's like no, we want to present it professionally, but that unknown, quirky, wacky ingredient, I think, is kind of a cornerstone of a Good Rogering shows that makes it fun. And the greatest compliments I've gotten many, many times over the years are just like, wow, we just saw you guys, you know, walked into a bar, saw you guys, didn't know what it was, didn't know what to expect. I'm not even a metal fan, and we loved you guys. It was just so entertaining and so fun and that kind of stuff, you know. So that's really what it's about, you know, just entertainment, having a good time.
I love that, man. And I feel like that's one thing that's missing right now in the local scene, or just in music in general, like the surprise element.
Yeah, well, it's very scripted, you know. I mean, I think we're dinosaurs hanging on to the old school. You know, a lot of bands now are wired very tight with in-ear setups, and they play to a click, and they've got a laptop on stage with backing tracks and all these things, and that's totally cool. I get that,
you know, and the singer is basically as practiced and well, like, you know, they give the same little speeches each night between songs, and it's like
I've written stuff and I don't follow scripts. I just don't.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's like not necessarily knocking it, but it's like you get a certain type of show, and when every band starts doing that kind of show, it's like, you know, I don't know. It's like after it's not like we're trying to, like, you know, fight against the ravages of time in any way. It's just you know, you got to do what feels best to you, and I suppose, yeah, if we ended up on a big league tour, like opening up for some of course we're gonna have to kind of play that game a little bit and be like, all right, here's our 30 minutes and that's all we got, so we gotta, you know.
Yeah, it's very contingent on the gig, right?
Exactly.
Are you an opening act, right, with 20 minutes to play, or are you got an hour and a half set with a lot of leeway?
And that's also, and I mean, again, yeah, context matters. Like, when we play, playing the Whiskey in LA, like sort of kind of like a big name venue, there's a big name headliner and whatever.
No fuck around.
You don't have a second to waste, right?
Yeah.
But when we're having to fill an hour and a half in Amarillo, Texas, then we're going to do a totally different show. That show, we're going to do a 12-minute blues jam, and Skunk's going to walk around the bar and get up in people's faces and stuff like that. Like both of those have equal value. I think you got to be able to do both. You can have the military precision, and you can have the, hey, this is a party. Let's cut loose.
And I don't know. I think that's one thing that a good Rogering. I think a lot of bands are kind of one or the other, right? You're a very sort of scripted modern metal band, which is great. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Or you're kind of like the cover party band. We kind of do both. When we tour, it's like, hey, okay, if we can play a place and we need to play 4 hours, we're going to pull all these covers out of our back pocket, and we're going to have, we're going to go all over the place. And if it's now we got a 40-minute set to put our best foot forward, we're going to come with our with our strongest material, and it's going to be very, very to the point, So it's certainly contingent on the gig. What I like, one thing I do like, and I've always liked from the get-go, is Good Rogering has always been eclectic in that nature and adaptable. So, we played acoustic shows, we've played party gigs, we've played, we've opened for nationals. It's just everything's different depending on the situation.
Oh yeah, and I'm excited to hear what's next for you guys. But before I let you guys go, I do want to ask you guys is if you guys were stuck in an elevator with any musician, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you talk about?
You want to go first there?
I'd probably choose Mike Patton, and I would ask him if me or my brother had a bigger dick.
That is the very definition of an inside
an inside joke?
Maybe, yeah. Would that be a joke?
Yeah, I mean, my brother was fondled at a Dead Cross concert on stage, and I don't know if I'm relieved or jealous that it wasn't me. It's funny because over the years we've got kind of a lot of interesting little connections with that. I mean, of course, I've always been a big Patton fan of pretty much all of his projects. I won't have to name them all, but yeah. So I would just probably. That's a really tough question to answer, but because of that inside joke, that's my answer.
Hey, if you wanna do that, if you wanna be fondled and stuff, and the next day Good Rogering show, you should just stick your dick out and see what happens.
Well, when we had the chef days, he had this apron where you lifted it and there was a big cock underneath it. So that was a part of our show at one time.
Oh wow!
I don't think I've never actually pulled my dick. In fact, a critique from our last show when I wore the dress was I think I'd laid down at some point or something, and you could see that I had shorts on under it. And the guy was like, "Yeah, that was just." I forget the guy's name, David Yao, I think, from Jesus Lizard. Apparently, is just gets naked on stage and shit. And he was like, "Yeah, David, that was I failed as a rock star. So next time I wear the dress, I'll be sure to my dick is exposed. My dick and balls are exposed."
That's hilarious. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I spent all this time trying to think of trying to narrow it down to one answer, but I guess I'd want to actually no. Now that I come to, I'd want to. He's not here with us anymore. I'd want to hang out with Neil Peart from Rush.
Oh, nice.
I want to talk about books with him because that dude just read anything and everything, and obviously, he wrote most or all of the lyrics for Rush songs while he was in. I feel like I could find stuff to talk about with him for hours on end. So that would be mine.
That's a really good answer. Honestly, both of them are good answers.
Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, very different.
Totally. Tim wants to discuss literature. I'm like, hey, whose dick's bigger?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. If it was me, I would want to be stuck
Talking
with.
about, I grabbed so many dicks, man.
Yeah, whose dick is bigger, Ernest Hemingway or John Steinbeck?
Oh my god!
Fall into those middle dicks.
Yeah.
But if I gotta say, if I was stuck in an elevator, it would probably be Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I would want him to play the guitar for me and show me how to play the guitar.
No talking, just guitar.
Would you grab his dick?
No, we'll be grabbing each other's.
That question, man, honestly, like, yeah, that's one of those impossible questions. It's like when someone says, "Who's your favorite guitar player?" Dude, it's if you had a gun to my head, right? Oh God, maybe I would just blurt out David Gilmour or Slash or Joe Satriani. There's so many, right? I mean, it's so hard to answer because that's the thing. I mean, that's like what I was saying earlier. I think we have Tim and I. One thing I love about Tim is we have such an eclectic influence. It's not like, even though like RuneScarred's known for metal and Tim writes some of the most amazing like progressive, fast, furious metal stuff I've ever seen and hung on by the seat of my pants trying to play. It's like this is the same guy that then we get back to the house and geek out over a Duran Duran song, and I
can annoy the shit out of Skunk with my love for Oasis and U2.
Not so much U2, but just the douchebag factor of the singer of Oasis. Like I can't get past that.
Anyway, here's Wonderwall.
Yeah, Wonderwall. I'll stop. Dude, Wonderwall. I wonder why that was a hit.
Yeah. Dude, earlier today I was on TikTok and I like Falling in Reverse. I like maybe 2 of their songs, but I do not like the singer. Ronnie Radke is a piece of shit. But he was talking about like, oh, my new album comes out on Friday, and I'm like, anyway, here's Wonderwall. I commented that and
wow.
But yeah, I love it and. I would love to do like maybe a part 2 of this conversation or an interview but I want to do it in person because I just feel like it would be so much better and I'm not sure if you guys are beer drinkers and stuff, but we should get wasted and talk music.
Where are you, man? Where are you located exactly?
I'm in San Benito, Texas.
San Benito, hometown of Freddie Fender.
Yes, sir.
Where is that in relation to, like, in the whole Valley area?
I mean, it's along 2, right?
It's next to Harlingen.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's in that stretch down there with.
Yeah, it's like 30 or 45 minutes away from McAllen, so.
Okay.
Like, I wouldn't say, hey, come over here when you guys come to McAllen because I'm pretty sure the last thing you guys want to do once you get to McAllen is drive more.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the right direction. It's not. I don't think it's like in the right direction back home. But I mean, ideally, we would do something where we came down to the Valley, for a weekend, and then like last time we were at McAllen and then we played Harlingen and we had a whole day that we just kind of went and ate and hung in a coffee shop. So if we had that kind of time between gigs, like that would be an ideal time to just come by as the band and do an in-person interview. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be sick, man. And if everybody listening to the interview right now loves it, it's going to be even better when we're 6 feet from the edge and we're thinking.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be fun, man.
They also need to be at the Flying Walrus on December 6th.
Right.
To see us play.
Yeah, December 6th.
Flying Walrus.
And where can we find you guys besides the Flying Walrus on December 6th?
Yeah.
What's that?
Where can we find you guys?
GoodRodgering.com. Of course, we're on all the socials. Good Rodgering Instagram. Good Rodgering Band on Facebook. Good Rodgering Videos on YouTube. Spotify, Apple, Amazon. All the usual suspects.
I want to thank you guys for.
Google it.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight, or whenever you're listening. Well, we're recording this tonight, but for everybody listening to in the morning or in the afternoon, thank you for listening, and follow them. And remember that without music, life would be a mistake.